So, the running joke is that Samsung takes the exact same design, slightly updates the cameras, and then ships out the same phone over and over again. And at first glance, both in terms of the hardware and the features, it definitely looks like they did that again, but only on paper because they definitely made a statement with the S26 Ultra. So, I've been fortunate enough to use the S26 Ultra since it launched last week at Unpacked in San Francisco, and I'm genuinely so impressed with this thing. So I'll quickly tell you everything that's been the same, the things that have been incredible, and a couple of misses that I've been experiencing the last couple days. And before we get too deep, a thumbs up or down, and maybe even a sub would be greatly appreciated if you end up liking the video. Alright, so the overall body design the same, it's just slightly thinner, slightly lighter, slightly rounder. There's a plateau under the cameras. It comes in this sharp purple color, similar to what we saw on the S24 Ultra. And the S Pen's been moved closer to the edge with a matching contour, which means for the first time this year, if you pop it out, you can actually insert it backwards, which is kind of weird. The display is still a 6.9 in QHD plus AMOLED, but it has this new and unique privacy display feature, which I'm sure you've heard about by now, but regardless, everybody is super hype about it. Now, as for the camera hardware specifically, it's the same 200-megapixel main shooter, 50-megap 5x telephoto, 10-megap 3x, and 50-megapixel ultra-wide. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, what's different? What's actually new with this phone? And why are people so amped up about it? So, the first reason is that new privacy display that we just talked about because it's actually a hardware feature. And honestly, I didn't expect this, but it's actually way better than buying those garbage privacy screen protectors that you see on Amazon because you can actually turn this on and off at your leisure or have it set up just for specific apps or notifications. So, for example, let's say you don't have much to hide, but you just want it to turn on every time you enter your PIN, for example. So, when you activate your lock screen, it'll automatically turn on and hide your PIN from prying eyes.
So yeah,
I don't know. There's just a lot that you can do with this feature, but I highly recommend not having it on perpetually because you'll notice when you turn it on, it actually does dim your phone. And in my opinion, it reduces the overall quality of everything that you're looking at. Hopefully, in a future update, Samsung can turn it on for just half the screen. So, let's say you're multitasking, watching a YouTube video on the top of the screen, and your emails are on the bottom of the screen. It would be really cool if you could just block off the bottom while watching your video because who cares if somebody sees you watching like anime or something when you're on the bus. So, I'll give you that idea for free, Samsung. So, this one, you've probably seen coming from a mile away because it's been in so many phones lately. It's the new processor that's running this phone. So, it's the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, which is a welcomed upgrade to this device, especially if you've used one of the Exynos versions of the Ultra phones in the past, which were just terrible. And Samsung actually boasted that they worked with Snapdragon to create a specific chip for their devices that meet their specific needs for AI gaming and the new bump in camera technology that we're going to talk about in a bit. And while you won't necessarily feel the upgrade of the Snapdragon 8 Elite in your day-to-day, once I explain these new camera features to you and how quickly they work, you'll definitely understand why we needed the Snapdragon 8 Elite. But that being said, it's also nice to know that I can easily run any recent mobile games which have gotten so graphically intensive the past few years. With this phone, I'm experiencing no jitters at all, and it does not get uncomfortably hot like previous phones that I've tested, which again is thanks to that powerful but very efficient chip and a larger vapor cooling chamber. Oh, and because of that larger vapor cooling chamber, you'll be happy to know that the S26 Ultra now supports 60W super fast wire charging. So, in practical use, that means you're able to go from 0 to 75% charge on cable in just 30 minutes. So, moving on to those cameras that we talked about, yes, the hardware is pretty much the exact same, but there's so much happening under the hood here that I can't believe Samsung really didn't spend much time talking about it at Unpacked. So, definitely part of the reason for going with the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, specifically for Samsung, and a larger vapor cooling chamber, was definitely to keep up with all these new camera features. So, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many other people, the iPhone has pretty much been the pinnacle of video on mobile devices. Like, it's just been the clear-cut leader when it comes to both casual and more pro workflows. But genuinely, I think Samsung has finally caught up here and maybe even surpassed Apple in some avenues. Because while the iPhone has slowly been trending towards more professional workflows, like it's showing up in blockbuster movies and TV shows, for example, and they're giving you all these crazy features like you can set up 100 iPhones and sync them in this video and do things that the normal person just is not doing. I think Samsung went the other way where they lowered the cost of entry and commitment for people who are looking at making, nice-looking or cinematic-looking videos without needing some big fast laptop or computer or a ton of knowledge of video editing and color grading. They've made solid videos accessible to pretty much everybody. Whether you're a content creator, a professional, or somebody that just wants cool-looking videos of their kids playing basketball. And the way that they've done that is by introducing the APV codec, which stands for Advanced Professional Video. And it's essentially the Android equivalent to ProRes. And when you couple it with the Samsung log profile that was released last year, it unlocks a ton of options for customizing the look of your videos, whether you know how to do it manually or just want to use the one-click presets that Samsung's included. So to keep it very simple, what the AP codec actually does is it treats every individual frame of a video as a high-quality image, while other codecs try to predict the motion between frames. And while this is technically more taxing than other codec, the Snapdragon 88 Gen 5 handles it with ease. Like you can literally color grade and export these videos in seconds. Like it's insane to me that I'm able to create such high-quality cinematic-looking videos all on the phone. And all that it requires is the camera app and the photo gallery app, two apps that everybody that has a phone knows how to use. The other thing about AP files, which is nice compared to the Apple ProRes log, is that AP videos are about 20% smaller than ProRes. Albeit, they're still large enough that you may want to use external storage when you're shooting like 8K or 4K AVP log. And that's all well and good, because this year Samsung actually includes... With that perspective, the battery on this is dying very quickly. And that might be for a lot of reasons. Like, for example, my main Android device prior to this one was the OnePlus 15. And if I'm not mistaken, that has a 7,400 milliamp hours battery, which is just absolutely insane. Like, that thing lasts forever. And I imagine, as all the reviewers say, but it is kind of true. Over time, the phone will definitely start to pick up my usage patterns. And so I think, in another week or two, the battery life should get better as it starts to understand how I use the phone, my peak hours during the day, that sort of thing. I mean, that coupled with the fact that the majority of the pictures I've shot have been 50 megapixel RAW plus JPEG, and I've taken a ridiculous amount of 4K APV log videos, way more than anybody would actually take in their regular day-to-day because, obviously, I'm testing the phone. I'm struggling to get like 4-hour screen on time at this moment. But still, it just feels crazy to me that Samsung keeps bringing out all of these crazy AI features and battery-intensive camera features while still keeping the battery capacity of the device at 5,000 milliamp hours. But again, we'll have to see how it holds up in my long-term review when I start to use the phone a little bit more fairly. The next downside for me is the lack of MagSafe. Yet again, I had very high hopes for the S26 Ultra when I saw that the Pixel 10 lineup finally adopted G2 charging. And before you start going crazy in the comments, I know that MagSafe cases like the 01 from Spigen do exist, but I just don't understand why that wouldn't be a logical next step for Samsung as well. Now, there's a lot of arguments swirling around as to why it hasn't been possible to add G2 to their phones. And the main reason that people keep bringing up is that the S Pen requires a digitizer under the display of the phone, and the magnets appear to interfere with that. When you attach a MagSafe case or accessory to the S26 Ultra, you get this notification that says the S Pen may not work correctly. That also advises you to take that accessory off if you're experiencing any trouble. I've used a ton of different MagSafe cases, ranging from the S24 Ultra all the way up to the S26. And I've never seemed to have any issues with my S Pen, but maybe making that magnetic ring internal and bringing it closer to the display would start to have some adverse effects on the S Pen functionality. So nobody really knows, but all I know is I really like using this phone without a case. And so, for me, I'll probably end up grabbing another Arc Pulse case like I have here on my S24 Ultra because it just gives you that nice naked feel while still protecting your phone. The only issue is I'm somebody that as soon as I jump in my car, I throw my phone on a MagSafe mount. So usually I keep a phone case in my car dedicated to just that, which is so annoying. It would just make so much more sense to have MagSafe built into the device, or G2 or Pixel Snap, whatever you want to call it. Which brings me to my final downside, which is the S Pen. Now look, I get that people love it, and there's a lot of business people out there that say how imperative it is to have this for them. And when it comes to editing photos in Lightroom, or even applying the new LUTs and just playing around with looks on my videos in the Gallery app, it is very fun and very precise to use the S Pen for that. But again, that's not something that I can't just do without my thumb. And I mean, it's already lost all of its Bluetooth functionality. So if the trade-off was losing the S Pen in order to gain a 7,400 mAh battery and, Qi 2, then I'm throwing the S Pen away every single time. So yeah, man. And it's just crazy to me that Samsung spent so much time showing us all these new AI features and circle to search 2 items at once, and AI can recognize the context of your conversations and help you do things faster, blah blah blah, while almost completely skipping over